deal with airplane peanuts.
My guest today is a very funny professional comic, Matthew Broussard. He's been on The Tonight Show, Conan, Jeff Ross Roast Battle. He has a Comedy Central half hour. He just got done opening for Burt Kreischer on the road. And above all that, he's the first ever guest on the Joke WRLD Podcast. Your new favorite comedy podcast is coming to you every single Wednesday on all platforms. Make sure you go download and subscribe and follow on Spotify and the podcast app and all that stuff. And comment what other comedians you want me to interview. We're going all around the country interviewing your favorite comedians for this channel and for YouTube. We got some great guests lined up next week in Austin, so make sure you stay tuned. Joke WRLD Podcast. It's your new favorite podcast. And with no further ado, Matthew Broussard.
I want to welcome to Tampa, performing at Side Splitters this weekend, and one of the first ever guests on the Joke WRLD Podcast, Matthew Broussard.
Hello, Joke WRLD. My name is Matthew. Nice
Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, dude.
Picked you up at the Whole Foods and got up here, bang out a podcast real quick.
Yeah, I can eat my salad bar with no fork. I'm just going to eat the rice grain by grain. Why do people shit on Tampa so much?
See, I don't know. I didn't know that people shit on Tampa.
Dude, it was...
Is that a thing?
It was the punchline. You could just use Tampa as a punchline.
There was a punchline for what? Like a...
Neil Brennan. I remember there was a Neil Brennan joke. And he was like, people leaving negative comments on like Bach. On like Beethoven, like, this sucks, bro. And I know music. I'm from Tampa. I remember that, and I remember just like a bunch of people use Tampa. It's just like a great city. It used to be Cleveland,
kind of like the bro city. Well, that's where I'm from. That's what I was gonna say. I'm used to maybe people shitting on the city that I'm from. With Cleveland. I mean,
just take the abuse, no questions.
I love it. It's almost like at least someone's talking about us. You know, all publicity is good publicity, I guess.
Yeah,
you could be like. Somewhere, Minneapolis, no one even jokes about them. That's just as shitty as Cleveland.
No, there's jokes about every city. Minneapolis, fat.
But the weird thing is about I moved here 8 months ago. I didn't know that was a punchline. I didn't know it was a joke. I've been having a fantastic time here.
Yeah.
If anything. But I never thought about Tampa beforehand. Growing up in Ohio, it was just like, oh, it's in Florida, whatever.
Yeah.
Didn't have any really preconceived notion of it.
Yeah, Florida is the punchline state. You can just use Florida as a punchline.
For anything kind of grimy or almost stupid in a way. Or
I mean, Florida
out
man.
there. Yeah, the Florida man.
Yeah.
I guess stupid isn't even the right word. Drugged up.
Yeah. What's the most Florida city?
First thing that came to mind was Jacksonville.
That's a good answer.
The word is dirty. It's like long and it's like it has like an X sound in it.
That's a good answer. That's pretty far north though, isn't it?
Yeah.
So which means it's more southern. Right? Culturally?
Right.
It's diverse.
Right.
Lake City. Where's Lake City? Okay.
I guess I might not be the best person to even answer.
I guess you're new,
I'm still learning about.
There you go.
Okay, Lake City.
Florida is a mix, though. That's the thing that makes Florida interesting.
Well, that's so funny because when I first moved here, I'm like in the downtown place. It's like beaches.
Yeah, this is the bougie area we are in, right? You can't see out the window, but we got a high school on a river.
It's a nice,
Jesus.
It's a nice little view, and I expected this to be like Florida spring break is what I thought I was moving to, and it is like that. A lot of from where I'm kind of running into. You know, I'm still going out a lot. You know, my kind of circles. But then if you drive a little too far in the wrong direction, it turns into like the South. Like I forget that this is also Florida. Like I completely forget about that. And sometimes I'm reminded of it when I see like some pickup trucks that are almost like touching the ground on the back with just like dishwashers and stuff in the back and just like, you know, scrappers that pick up fucking shit everywhere. Like you'll see some real Florida shit every once in a while and be like, oh yeah, I am in the South.
During the pandemic, I drove from Atlanta to South Florida. I think I did that ride in either direction 4 times. The billboards at the Florida-Georgia line get real crazy. A lot of pro-life. And then you'll know these if you ever made this road trip. There's Christian signs. It's like JesusIsComing.net. And there's a bunch of them, and they're really old. There's like at least 5 of them. And we checked it out. No one owns that website currently. or at least someone needs to buy it and turn it into a Planned Parenthood page or something. Just have some fun with that.
That's like such like a silver platter, an alley-oop of a joke. If you got a little disposable income and can buy that
also,
domain.
How old are you? How old are you that you think someone's going to see a billboard and type in a website?
And the people that would do that would be so old that they don't even know how to do that.
Right. Fucking put a QR code on it. That's safer.
Let me go. That drive. That's so funny. Me and my roommate drove up to Nashville maybe a month ago. Mm-hmm. And it's like Florida, when you get in between, because Florida, you can go 50 miles over the speed limit. That's the thing in the Florida highway. And you kind of fear for your life a little bit. And no one else seems to care about their life. That's some crazy. That is
Florida. Florida is fuck you. I'm going to do me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And good luck. But then after that, when you're in Georgia because you go the speed limit because those cops snipe you, and the billboards get insane. The billboards are, it's not even like what they're saying. It's like they're every 5 yards from one another down the entire state. There's ones for like religious. What was it? It was like Jesus Zombie. There's a crazy one. There's like
Jesus Zombie
one, and it's like you can pull over to like this Jesus.
Is that Rob Zombie's son?
It might be. He's the chosen one.
He's a Christian, Christian death rock. Yeah.
It's aggressive. It is. It's the Georgia billboard community. They don't care about. They're not as
not many restrictions.
As some.
Yeah. What is the most Ohio city? Because I love to ask this question. What's the most generic city in America? And my answer is Columbus, Ohio.
Wow.
And I don't mean that as an insult. I'm just saying if you wrote a sitcom there, you wouldn't have to worry about how the culture would affect the characters.
I was going to say Columbus as in like what city is like all encompasses the feeling of I'm in Ohio the most, but like there's so many different perspectives, I guess. Some people think it's like corn and like farming, and that's not really Columbus. So I was trying to figure out how to maybe answer that, but I guess Columbus would be because that's like you got the college there, obviously.
Big convention center. It's a convention
center. It's like the fast food capital of America or something. Like people go there to like test out if their fast food works. It's like a big marketing place. So they have like Wendy's headquarters. They have like some. But as far as just like normal people go,
you get the Beta Burger. You get to see what it's like before it hits the market. Yeah,
all that Impossible Whopper stuff.
Whoa.
But yeah, so I guess it is just kind of a normal place. But I like Cleveland because you get Lake Erie too, and that seems very Ohio to me. See, Ohio for me, because I'm from the north, is like like Lake Erie in the summer, that kind of thing, which I guess is not very Ohio if you talk to someone that's never been there, like what they would think. You probably wouldn't think water or like
Ohio might be the most generic state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very generic. There's just like Midwest, not much of anything going on, but also they're not missing too much, but there's not over much.
Yeah. Did you do comedy in Ohio?
Yeah, in Cleveland. Did Hilarities a few times, and then
great club.
Yeah,
really good club. I performed there in 2016. I did a weekend, and I was staying at the hotel right across the way downtown. And on Sunday, there was a note slipped under my door that says, "The RNC starts tomorrow. All hotels are sold out in the whole region for the week. You cannot extend your stay. You must you must be out of your room.
Evacuate the premise."
I was like, that is the most Republican thing you could have done. I also learned this about that week when the RNC comes to town. All of the bars get to extend their closing hour to 4 because there's so much partying and coke and drinking.
Wow.
And apparently it is busy season for male prostitutes. I mean, for female prostitutes too. But there's a lot of like, Lindsey Graham types. They're like, I'm going to have me a little feast tonight.
Wow. Yeah. I never would have thought that. I would have thought these were some old dudes that were boring as fuck. And
that's what they'd love you to think.
Yeah. They're doing a great job.
Listen, I'm sure Democrats party real hard too, but we're just not as fun as Republicans. And
that is hilarious. The only thing I remember from being there during that time was that was the year that the Cavs won the NBA Finals, and I was at the watch party in Game 7 when they came back from that 1-3 lead. One of the greatest nights of my life and greatest accomplishments that I've ever had was watching my team win that championship. But I was in the...
Everyone gets hand jobs tonight.
Oh,
it was
everyone gets hand jobs. That was the second busiest time for male prostitutes. But I was in the stadium or the arena during the watch party because during the game it was away. It was in California, and so they filled up the whole arena with fans watching on the big screen. But the court was all set up for the RNC, so like it was like big stages, and like it just kind of ruined the moment to be like we're all watching the game, but then you look at the court and it's just like weird, just like set up for something that's not basketball. It did kind of take you out of it a little bit, but then you went outside afterwards and it was mayhem.
1 million people, right?
Yeah,
1 million people.
At the parade, 1 million people. That's one thing that people ask me about. How is the parade? 1 million people. Machine Gun Kelly is hanging off the.
Is he from Cleveland? No.
Yeah,
He is.
Yeah. He has a coffee shop there now. It's kind of cringy actually. It was cool at the beginning, but now girls will dress to the nines and go there and like take pictures like standing in like hour-long lines outside of this coffee shop, and it's like one of the only bougie places in Cleveland. It's the only place trying to be bougie in Cleveland.
Yeah.
It's the only place that isn't a fucking factory, so it's just kind of weird to see like girls like in crop tops and skirts at 9 a.m. just like taking the same picture 40 times to get the perfect one outside this coffee shop in Cleveland, Ohio. It's bizarre. But anyway, that parade was something that it was cool to be at, but it was miserable to actually attend. It's just something to be like, yeah, I was there, but during that day was terrible. You couldn't move, you couldn't see anything. It was like Fire Fest of championship parades.
Is Machine Gun Kelly cool?
That's a good question.
Do you think he's cool?
There was a timeline of no, yes.
What inspired the yes?
Probably before this latest phase of like punk rock Machine Gun Kelly.
Oh, sure.
Like more when he was, because I'm kind of into that whole rap genre, I'd say, of music. When he was doing like his song Candy with like Trippie Redd, that kind of, he had a few good rap songs and some features where he was like, his whole vibe was different. It was like a little grungy, but not, he was still cool. I guess I'm trying to describe maybe a cool person for where I was at my age. I'd say around 20 to 22 and a half. I was like, yeah, that's someone that's cool. Not someone that I was like, he's so fucking cool, but he was someone that I'd be like, I wouldn't laugh at you if you were going to a Machine Gun Kelly concert. Over the last year, I'm about to turn 24. Over the last year, I would say now it's like, I don't really get it as much.
Yeah, dude, I'm 34. That'll happen.
Yeah.
You stop I don't know if you ever used a floppy drive, but there's like a thing that you can snap on it and it doesn't hold new information anymore. And that happens with your music tastes. Like, you got to find a band before you're 22.
Yeah.
Or because I can't enjoy Machine Gun Kelly. I don't get it. It seems kind of, sorry, buddy. If you're listening, it wasn't for me. It never spoke to me, and I think I was just a little too old for it.
I do like, though, that he does rep Cleveland a lot, which is something I can appreciate because of how much of a punchline it is. When we get one guy to be big, it's like, thank you for not acting like you never were from here.
Yeah.
That's cool to me. But the other his music, it changed from like cool rap that I like to like this new genre of like almost asking to be depressed. Like, if I'm in a good mood, why would I put on a Machine Gun Kelly song that's like kind of emo in a lot of ways?
That's what, that music is really appealing when you're at that age. I mean, I assume you're an emo rap fan based on the name of the pod.
Yeah, I am a
Juice WRLD
I'm a big
rapper, yeah.
Juice guy. Yeah. But now it's like, I guess I liked the rap version of that. Maybe not so much the punk like screaming
Emo rap. Mathematically, of course, it's going to be huge. It mixes the bravado of rap with the emotional vulnerability of emo music. I had those two things separately growing up.
Yeah,
they did not cross streams, and I liked from each pot. I loved Blink. I guess my rappers were like, Lil Wayne was coming up around that time. So I loved, so there was an iteration that I got to see the beginning of, which was, I really loved Kid Cudi. I discovered Kid Cudi.
Cleveland guy.
In college musically, and he reps
Let's go.
Shaker Heights, Wale, who's more of like a conscious rap, and Drake. And I discovered those guys all before I turned 24. Probably before I turned 22. I like those guys now. And I understand they're lame. I understand if you're older than me why that would seem really dorky, but I will never stop appreciating what they did.
Yeah.
Especially, and then Kanye was an iteration of that. Kanye was vulnerable in a way that rappers were afraid to be, and that was when I was in high school, and that was cool, man.
His early stuff. I don't know if you've been watching the doc or watched the doc, but those early like graduation
The
Dropout
trio?
albums. Yeah, I mean,
The trio was fucking. I was alive for that.
I've been re-listening to that a lot recently. That is vulnerable. That's like not current rap of just like, look how great I am. You could never do this. Look how much money. And
Well, there's always been that in rap.
There's always that, and maybe he has a few songs like that, but most of these are just like him talking about his actual life and just this crazy perspective on things. That
The Wire was his dropout.
God,
It was
The
his when he
Wire,
came
dude.
out.
Like no
And it
one
was-
is doing that kind of. No one cares about music. I feel like how much he did. It seems like these current rappers, like Lil Baby, DaBaby, all these babies, all they care about is money, making as much as many
That's not
songs
new.
to get. That's not
That's
new,
not
but
new.
you can
That's
tell that
a
Kanye
constant.
loved them. It seems
Yeah.
like DaBaby, if he wasn't a good rapper, he would just do whatever he could to make the most amount of money. It seemed like Kanye, if he was the worst rapper, he would still be a producer. He would still do whatever he could to be around music. It seemed
Isn't
like
that so funny?
he seems like he loves music.
For rappers, you sell out when you start caring about something other than the money.
Yeah.
Like the ground level is I'm here to get rich, fuck everything else. And the second you're like, but what about artistry? Like,
Yeah.
boo.
Yeah, that is true.
It's
That's
such
funny.
a reversal. And
Yeah.
then that's a bit I did years ago, but
Yeah.
rappers go broke bragging about how rich they are, and comedians get rich joking about how broke they are.
Yeah. It's there's something that, or like comedians are trying to convince you that they're normal, and like rappers are trying to convince you that they're not or something.
Yes,
Which is funny because-
And rappers succeed breaking those rules, whereas comedians trying to be cool. It will never work.
No.
I did that. I see so many young comics doing that and be like, you have to give up. And what a wonderful thing that you can
Yeah.
indulge in your not coolness. You don't have to
'cause
fake something.
No one's gonna like think that. No one wants to like laugh at you and you be like this cool guy that has nothing wrong with them and
Right.
stuff. It's like, well, then you're a douche, dude. You're winning at everything. Like you're being like, look how sick I am, and now listen to me make you laugh for an hour. That doesn't even. That's
And-
why it's harder to be Kevin Hart than in a lot of ways than it is to be maybe an unknown. In a lot of ways, it isn't. But people know that you're super rich and you have this different perspective that you didn't have in your earlier days. But I will say to that, Pete Davidson seems pretty cool, and if he
Yeah.
counts as a comedian.
I think he cares about his jokes still.
Yeah.
Which goes a long way. And I think he is a fucked up person. And
Yeah.
and we all know that. So it doesn't. He's
not
still
trying
got
to
a
be
lot of
cool.
pain
He's
to bear.
just- He's just being whatever he'd be without comedy.
Yeah, he's not trying to be cool, which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Um,
Just is.
And here's the thing: we're talking about comedians trying to be cool, and people listening are probably picturing like broy, like Jeselnik impressions. There is this on the far left side of comedy as well. There is this. It's funny to see someone going up and making, I guess it's called virtue signaling, but just like making up stories where some bigot says something
Yeah.
and they one up them of like,
Yeah.
that's also trying to be cool. I know you're fighting for a good cause.
Yeah.
I respect that, but like you need to be the punchline.
You're just trying to be cool in a different
A new
circle of
framework.
people.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
within a
like
new
when
framework.
you'll see tweets. Well, I haven't
Which
seen
I'm
a
guilty
tweet
of, by the
about-
way. During the Trump administration, like half of my tweets were
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, y'all are racist."
Well, then maybe you have one of
I'm a
these
winner.
tweets that's
I'm
like.
sure I do. Fuck, I am so sorry to everything I tweeted during the Trump administration.
It's over now. You can take a deep breath. That's the other thing, dude. Well, I want to get back to these kind of tweets, but people like the late night shows. I feel like they are still making Trump jokes because now they don't know what to talk about. Because for years there was a whole sector of comedy that was just like every week is just going to be jokes about the president. Now that's gone. I think Jimmy Kimmel is still making Trump jokes. It's like, I thought this was over, but now that's your lane, I guess.
I saw Earthquake's new special. He made Trump jokes that were very good, but it's his first special in a while.
Right,
So he wants
yeah.
to talk about it. Talked about it from the black perspective,
Yeah.
from a personal perspective. It was good. But yeah, I also like,
Kind of
I remember
hold yourself in a way.
I was like, when I moved to LA and I had heat and nothing else, just like a couple people thought I had a chance and were giving me opportunities I didn't deserve, but I had the chance to work for E! In some capacity, and they're like, make jokes about pop culture. I'm like, I don't want to make a joke about what CeeLo wore to the award show
Yeah.
because it's already ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't like making jokes about things that are already absurd. Like, to me, great comedy is Seinfeldian, where it's like, let's take something that you think is mundane and see how much you can wring it out for absurdity.
Yeah. You want to make people think, how did I not think of that?
Yes.
More than
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That makes
wow, that
sense.
was right there and no one saw it. That's great to me.
Yeah, I do this every day, and this guy just pointed out something completely
Something everyone
silly
sees
about
but no one notices. Yeah.
or just like a different way to think about things. And I feel like that is a style of comedy that I enjoy a lot, or just like starting off as maybe an open micer. You're like, I'm going to write these jokes. They're going to be more observational, especially because you get 5 minutes usually. No one knows who you are. So a personal story might not hit the same as if you're an established person, your fans are coming out, maybe you have a podcast, so people are used to hearing these intimate details about you. You can tell a story about your family or your kids or your spouse or something, because people know all the characters and they know you. I've always
There's prereqs.
Yeah, I've always thought I see a great special or a great joke from someone that I admire, and it's a story, and I'm like, man, I want to get a signature story, or I want to tell jokes like that instead of these like set up punchline observation kind of surface level jokes. But it seems like you can't start, like I just said, you guys start off building up your reputation. So how, as someone who's really gone through, maneuvered the waters, have you ever cared about being like, I want to be a storyteller?
I've always wanted to be a storyteller and always failed. Yeah. I mean, I think I've hit 2 or 3 minutes with a story, but I know that I'm kind of padding it out with observational stuff. I think the longest story I have was like the Pokemon sculpture story. I like that one, but I mean, Jay Larson, the phone call, I think it's one of my top 5, top 10 late night sets where it's just one story about a phone call.
Yeah.
Which please check it out. That's one if you're a comedy fan.
Yeah, plug some stuff. We can do
top
that at
late
the
night
end.
sets. Goldman, States Abbreviations, #1. I think Nick Vatterott has my second favorite, which is I don't know what to call it. Just Google Nick Vatterott late night set, and I won't say what the joke is because there's one joke in it that makes it's already good stand up, and then he does something that just takes it to such a higher level. It's like prop meta comedy, and it's that stuff is so bad unless it's so good.
Yeah.
I love Rory Scovel's piano set. I think that was a really good one. Yeah.
So I think one of my favorite sets ever, if we had to do favorite stand-up sets, I liked a lot of the This Is Not Happening show. And those are all kind of stories. I love Chris Stefano's 9/11 story.
Which, by the way, fuck Chris, because he put that out on like 9/11. Like he filmed it at like 9/12 or something like that. And he told the story on stage.
Really?
And he just and then he dropped it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? How is this so good? And like, it's a worked out stand-up bit. He doesn't. He does it on days other than 9/11.
Okay, that makes sense.
It doesn't diminish his ability, but I'm like,
but
thank God this isn't just something real.
Viral because he's a little drunk.
So punchy. It seems so fucking in the moment.
Because he said
so
that he tried to
good,
do that on like a 30-minute special or something since then, and it didn't hit the same because
got too many views.
Or no, well, they wanted it to be different on the network. They wanted to change some of the things. And the original video, he said he was like actually just drunk in it and didn't know that he was going to perform that night. And so there's some parts in there where he's like saying some wild shit. Then he goes, "I'm drunk." And it's like part of how funny the whole thing is. Like those are the authentic moments that I guess social media is giving stand-up now.
Heisenberg's principle of comedy is that if you know a camera is on, you won't perform as well. So that happens in New York sometimes where you do a set, and like, we have a tape of that. And you're like, that's going to be the best clip I'll ever post. Because I didn't know there was a camera there. And I think Chris...
Yeah. Like our conversation before this was so funny. We were
man, I can't believe we weren't rolling for that. Fucking what?
For like an hour. No, but... Yeah, that makes sense. There's a different pressure because then sometimes it feels like if you go up and you're maybe you go by yourself and this is where my experience is. You go by yourself, you go up, you're doing your set for that room and for yourself to get better at stand up. But when you go up and maybe your buddies are there and you know one of them's going to film for you and stuff, then you at a certain point you know that you're doing this for either the video. I'm going to post this video. I'm going to rewatch the video. I'm going to get a screenshot of this for my Instagram of me on stage. Like it's different.
Captions are right here. Yeah.
I'm thinking about like how I'm where they are sitting and like how I'm going to be in the video. Now I'm doing stand up for a phone. Now I'm not doing it for the room and I'm not doing it for myself in a certain way.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing, but the clip world and all this constant sharing of stand-up has obviously, I'd say, been a good thing. What do you think about that?
Oh, I love that I do miss gatekeepers to some extent because there's so much mediocrity just being thrown at the internet in terms of stand-up, and it does diminish the product a bit. But cream always rises, and it's fun. It's fun because I do like short jokes. I think if I can get a joke out to 2 or 3 minutes, I'm pretty excited. If I can have one topic for 4 or 5 minutes, that feels really cool.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just write a stupid joke that stands alone, that never fits in my act anywhere important, never tells any deeper story or conveys any vulnerability, and I still like the writing and that.
Yeah.
What a great clip to burn.
Right.
What a great 35 seconds for reels.
So you have a writing process, obviously. Do you write things like that and go, oh, this will be good for reels, and then whenever you're out next, make sure that you hit on all those? Or are you still going through maybe your regular sets and then finding different moments to put on reels?
The latter, much more the latter. I don't ever write for the intention of this is for this and this is for that. I just throw out what I feel is funny when it comes to me, and maybe look through my material during the day and rearrange stuff and plan a set list and all that kind of stuff just to see what comes out of it. And then I'll be doing a joke for a while. I'm like, you know what? I never thought about that, but that's a good real joke. I can pull that out. It's very modular. I can take that out of that joke, and the joke is no weaker for it.
Right.
The last set I did with Comedy Central was the first set where I actually consciously designed the whole set to be fully modular, where I could take out every single joke and post it by itself.
Wow.
Usually my goal has been the opposite. I want 5 minutes where you can't tune out for any joke, because they all builds within one theme or story or character. And this was like, no, it's good to watch through, and it builds, and everything's going to have an arc. But like, this joke stands alone, and great. If you just watch that and you like it, I'm very happy.
Yeah, that seems more difficult.
That's
by far to be like the.
It's when you burn one of those perfect 1 minute jokes, you're like, well, might be 2 years before I write something of that quality. That's that short.
And like to know that you could put it out there and it could flop completely on the internet, even though it's a perfect joke, like just based on things outside your control.
But you get so many shots. You get TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, or you can put it in a late night set if it falls flat. And you can keep doing it if no one watches it.
That's true. You can repost it a year later or 6 months later. I saw Chris Stefano's reposted that bit every 9/11 since it happened. I'll just put it down, take it back.
Refractory period is what we call that. How soon can you post a clip? It's weird because I'm 10 or 11 years into comedy. It doesn't feel that long, but when I started, late night sets were what everyone was fighting for, and they could make people. You could sell a show because you had a hot set. You could take off. It could go viral, and it was about who could write 5 minutes that just really shines as a unit, as one functional piece. 5 minutes, whatever, that's 25 punchlines, maybe that's 50 punchlines, closer, callback, all that. And now I don't see much value in that, unfortunately. I see value in that. It's really fun to tell a joke like that in a room. If I go up there and just try to do a bunch of 40-second jokes, I'll sputter out eventually. But if you
the value of comedy is still there, but maybe not
of the live part.
Right.
But the internet now, I mean, you look at so many great New York comedians who are already writing in that super short jokesmith style, and they're having a lot of success, which I'm very happy to see. Because they have those perfect TikTok jokes.
How do you think that the style of New York comedians, it seems like they kind of all fit in the same. There is a style, maybe you could put to words what it is more, but it seems like there is a style of like guys that were New York comedians and guys that weren't. If you looked at them all, not knowing anything about them, I feel like it'd be pretty easy to pick out of a line.
Highly dense with punchlines, very modular. Some people are long form storytellers, but everything starts and concludes mostly within a minute or two, sometimes 3. And L.A. and it's like, I think to me a New York stand-up is someone you could read their set and know where the punchlines are, and maybe even laugh out loud. I call it transcript comedy because the words do the work already, and that's because you're at a bar where people's attention spans are shorter. They're expecting a lot out of the show because it's New York. It costs a lot. They know this is a place where there's a lot of talent, and you can't waste words. Whereas in LA, I mean, I'm pretty judgmental of LA just for the not having had a great time living there.
Yeah.
But I see comics who sell their character more than their words.
Ooh,
and perhaps there is a market for. I mean, some people that they just want to see a funny person be funny. Where it's like, I want to see well written jokes.
Yeah,
that's completely like I want to see a singer with amazing voice. Or I'm like, I don't care the quality of the singer's voice. I want to hear a well constructed song.
Yeah,
it's a matter of personal preference.
Wow, that is true. It almost like to a T seems like if I'm just thinking of New York guys off the top of my head and imagining their stand up, and then LA comedians off the top, like. And I'm not even imagining like a real set. I'm just like picturing in my head like them on stage, like what it looks like.
Very silly,
more slow and like.
D'Elia was to me I'm talking in the past tense. I don't know why, but he was kind of that guy who could drive. If you read a transcript of his act, you'd be like, so where's the laugh in this portion?
Yeah.
And you watch, you're like, every 6 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he can say the same phrase 6 times different ways. Yeah. And
some crazy
I
stuff
can't
with
do
his
that.
arms.
And
Yeah.
I think that's a real skill. I also think what happens is that in LA, no matter how good you are, there is much less stage time. You can be a successful touring comedian and be doing 3 or 4 spots a week and grateful for it.
Yeah.
And those are 8-minute spots at a bookstore or 10-minute spots late on a weeknight at a comedy club. And I feel to really figure out the writing of a joke, you have to tell it 100 times to figure out, that little contraction is why it's failing. One little pause. You have to do it so many times and play with it. And you're like, that super simple wording has just an iceberg underneath it of failed attempts. Whereas in LA, you don't get that many attempts on it.
Yeah.
So how do you pad out? How do you pump out the amount of material? Well, then you just overact out the joke.
That makes a ton of sense.
That's how you find the laughs where you are unable to write them.
That environment seems like it would lead to something like what you're saying.
You got to try harder because you get less attempts.
Yeah.
And let's criticize New York now. The jokes pay off in 40 seconds, but things can kind of just, again, like I was saying, sputter. After an hour of that pacing, you need something more like that. You look at good specials, it's about half observational, and then the last 30 is something that's more connected. And then the beats per minute slow down, but then they're getting at something more personal, more vulnerable, that kind of. I mean, Nanette was an example of that. And you can criticize Nanette, but people who are fans of Hannah are uber fans because she gave up laughs per minute in exchange for something more personal and bigger than just comedy.
And now she's going to have those fans for life, too.
Yes, fans for life. And you will never figure out how to write like that if you're doing 15-minute spots around New York City only. You'll never have an act like that.
Well, I feel like someone beginning, though, like they would think more like a New York comic, too. Like
if you're a new comic, that's how you should be writing.
I really want to get on stage. I'm going to go more to like something that like Mark Norman would write than something like Hannah or any of these storytellers. Like Theo Von's a perfect example of someone that is not transcribable for laughs.
No.
You'd be like, this is...
But he's an undeniably funny person.
Yeah. So do you think that those... Or not do you think... What would your schedule be like? Let's say you're not on the road. It's a regular weekday. Do you line up a spot every night, multiple spots a night? How do you go about kind of working out these materials and getting a joke to 100 reads in New York?
I just take all the spots I'm offered, which usually means I like having Monday or Tuesday off. I like taking one weeknight off of comedy. If I have an empty day, I don't look to fill it on a weekday. I'm like, that's a sign.
Yeah.
But 1, maybe 2 spots on a weekday. That's weekday being Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday, 1 or 2 or 3 spots. Same with Sunday. It can be a busy night. And then Friday, Saturday, I hope I have at least 2, up to 4. And if I can arrange, like if I can find a place to pop in, I'll do that. So I think I end up with usually 10 to 15 spots a week.
Wow. What's your favorite place to perform at?
I love, as much as I love the clubs in Manhattan and what a good feeling it is because the crowds are so fun. You're up with great comics. I love the little bars, like out in Brooklyn, the bar shows where it's 10 or 20 people.
Okay.
And it's a little more, they're more comedy savvy. They seem to like when you look at the Notebook. They seem to like the newer jokes, and it's just a good place to try out stuff.
They understand they're on the base floor of creating something kind of with you almost.
Yes, they get the process because maybe they're artists, like musicians or something.
Yeah.
Cobra Club has a show called Live from Outer Space with Micah Fox, Eric Bergstrom, and some other producers. I have so much fun every time I'm there. And it's a room that probably only has about sometimes 20, sometimes maybe 40 people. There's comics in the back, and you can hear their laughs on certain jokes versus the front. So that's really fun to me because that's where I tend to experiment the most.
And how are the clubs in your regular places in the place that you live compared to when you're on the road?
It's different. Clubs in New York, well, the clubs are different from each other, but
Right.
you gotta swing. You gotta prove yourself immediately because it's going to be a strong lineup in New York. There's going to be a lot of inside jokes I can play to. There's a lot of New York jokes. There's a lot of jokes I can only do in New York.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that. I enjoy a joke that only works here now.
Yeah.
I think a crowd anywhere wants a joke. You want you to start with a joke that cannot be picked up and moved to another
100%.
place.
Yeah. Or
whether it's
something
crowd
that's
work with
happening
someone.
live.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Tailor this experience so that we can tell you didn't copy paste it. And I can do that way better in New York since I live there.
Every time I've been to Side Splitter since I've moved here, I think I've been 3 or 4 times, and every single time, whether it's been Annie Letterman, Joe List, I saw Bob Kelly there, everyone's done some sort of, at the very beginning, like something specific to Tampa or like Florida in general, like the Florida Man, or said some crazy stuff about how, I think every single person mentioned that, like, oh, you guys haven't even had a pandemic here or something like that. It was a very like, and every time I was like, I laughed a little more because I could tell that it was not written.
Yeah.
yeah. Right. Everyone says that. Everyone
says it
because they all get off from wherever they were from, usually like California or like a stricter COVID area, and are like, oh, so it's normal here.
Yep.
And it's funny. Yeah. So people definitely do appreciate something that they knew that you just came up with.
Yeah. Something bespoke. Yeah, and then I try to do that on the road. On the road, I'm doing a longer set, so there's less flexibility in certain ways. Where it's like if I want to do my full set, I have to. There's portions of jokes I need to include, like extended versions. Whereas in New York, I'm only doing 15.
Right.
So,
do you think that if people came to they came to see you on the road, and let's say they're on a family vacation to New York City, and they see that you are performing at some club, and they're like, "Oh, we saw him on the road. Let's pop in." Would they be surprised by how different the show is in the city with these tighter punchlines, or would they just be like, "Oh, that was just a different type of show"?
That's a good question. I don't think it's that different. I think I am motivated by competition, so I will probably be like, it'll be a best hits compilation in New York. It'll be how can I make myself as funny as possible in 15 minutes and cut out any fat, and just do a really killer where it's in a full length headliner set. I'm like, let's just really explore. I guess I'm saying the opposite of what I just said, but like, I try to in a 50-minute set include some portion in the middle where I can work on the softer stuff, but there has to be
bookmarking,
where it's like
great joke, something to work on.
If I want to close the hour on this joke, then there's about 10 minutes of setup I need before I get to that closer.
Right.
So it's like, okay, is that the light? I'll do 5 minutes more of this, and then I'll start a 10-minute closing joke, which feels really suffocating sometimes.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
I guess I've never really thought about it that kind of way. And so you say that while you're traveling around, try to like customize jokes to the different area. Do you think that you, as a traveling headlining comedian, have a better understanding maybe on just the country in general, because it's part of your job to always be moving around and then also get to know something about the areas to make a joke about?
I mean, we started this episode talking about cities.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't think I'm better at it. Like that's a cocky thing to say, but there are certain things I really enjoy analyzing about what makes this city's culture different from this one. And as comedians, we get the most wonderful polling data of why does this joke, when I say this, get a laugh here consistently.
Wow.
If I do this joke 100 times in New York City, it will get a laugh 91% of those times.
Yeah.
Whereas if I do this joke in all of Florida, it will get a laugh 12%. So what
that's so
variance we
cool.
get, and what does that speak to? And I can only hypothesize. I'm not a scientist in this, but I can speculate as to what are the things that led to that.
Yeah.
What about the heat and the access to beaches and the higher concentration of people? What
That's
about these
insane.
non?
Yeah, I've never thought about jokes
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, beyond even just the obvious, I'm like, well, it's more Republican here. Like, what else contributes?
What if
to
it's
that?
a non-political joke? What if it's the stupidest joke ever? It's a joke about like fucking corn dogs or
Yeah.
something. It has nothing to do with any sides. What experiences do all these people that live in this area with these elements and these circumstances? Why is their perspective on corn dogs so different than?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's so cool to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I love math. I love statistics, and I think that comedy. The reason I'm drawn to it is I'm always discouraged by subjective pursuits, subjective creations, because you'll never have a quality. You'll never have someone say this is good. You can't grade it like a test, right?
Right.
Most art, and most entertainment.
Right.
Whereas comedy, where like I heard the sound of laughter,
Instant
I did
feedback.
something correct.
Yeah.
So how can something that is so subjective be so consistent?
Right.
And then what are the variances within that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. And I want to figure out every city. I have so many regional jokes. My Austin joke, I was just like, let's put this online. This is such a like, you have to be from Texas to get this joke.
Yeah.
I put it online. It was cool to see other people like related to it.
Yeah.
But I have 3 minutes on Utah that I think is wonderful and does not work even a little bit outside of Utah.
Unless you're from Utah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I've never thought about jokes like that. That's really cool, actually.
And there are cheap moves, and I do this, but there are jokes you can do about cities that sound. We talked about jokes being tailor-made. They can sound tailor-made, and if you're a comic, you're like, yeah, that joke works in Austin. That joke also works in Portland. That joke also works
you can
in San
tell-
Francisco.
Yeah.
And there's jokes you can do in Tampa that work in all of Florida, but you can just say Tampa.
Yeah. And there's jokes that work in like
Also,
Cleveland
that
and
COVID
Detroit.
joke works
you
in
can say
all of the
this.
South, by the way. You can use that in
Right.
Texas. You can use that in Louisiana. Yeah.
That makes. Yeah. I mean, I guess I kind of knew that, but.
It's fine. It's still,
Yeah, it
I'm
is
not
what it is. It's
judging
in
it.
the moment.
I do
And
that.
It's not like people are
but
going to
to
be
me-
like, hey, that could also apply to Mississippi. Like,
Or to me, the goal, and this is my goal with writing roast battle jokes. This is to me what determines a quality roast battle joke is, could you use it elsewhere? And if the answer is no, not even a little bit. My Utah joke, I am proud to say, only works about
Yeah.
Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
That joke would. I mean, you could slightly transfer it to Boise, but no,
Yeah.
it works so specifically to that, and that makes me feel good. Whereas, like a roast battle joke about someone being fat that I could use on any other fat person,
right.
it's not very satisfying.
No. Because then you're just like writing a joke. You could have wrote that without even knowing who the roastee was.
Right.
You could have just been like, these are some fat jokes I wrote, and then here's some.
I want something that ties together their job,
Yeah.
what they look like, and then me. If it's like, that's even better. If only I could tell this joke.
And that's basically the roast battle version of going to a city and saying a joke that only works for them.
Right.
It's like, I want a joke that only works for this, between me and this other guy.
Except that, the one difference being, jokes about a cities can also compliment those cities,
Right.
Which is another thing I have learned the hard way.
I guess I'm from two cities where there hasn't been any compliments.
Boy, when you
given out.
shit on a city, people take it so personally.
Yeah.
Man, I did a joke in New Jersey where I got just chewed out by a woman afterwards, and then I wrote a whole joke defending New Jersey. As a result of that, I took it so hard that I'm like, I'm going to write 3 minutes about how great New Jersey
Yeah.
is and how people should stop shitting on
There's
it.
some comedians that have full-on beefs with states. Like, was Tom Segura versus Louisiana? He had that great joke about we should build a wall just around Louisiana.
Yep.
And people sent him like death threats. He said about it.
They
And
call
it's
them like racist against
yeah.
Cajuns. And
Yeah.
he did a whole bit about how stupid Cajuns are, and I'm Cajun. I'm like,
Yeah.
solid. Like,
Yeah.
I love. Just give us representation. Man.
Yeah.
Waterboy wasn't enough,
And it's a joke.
and it's a
That's
joke.
another thing.
But it's. I really to a fault love to write about regions and cultures, and I also moved a lot as a kid, and I think that was a thing for me when I lived in Corpus Christi, Texas, and I just had no idea that it wasn't a big town.
Yeah.
I just thought this was how everyone lived. I remember I watched
Yeah.
like John Hughes movies with like the quarterbacks and the cheerleaders and the nerds table, and I was like, well, that's not real, right?
Yeah.
My school is mostly like I had a weird experience where I went to a magnet school and they stuck us. So magnet school was a very diverse
What is a
program.
magnet school?
If you make a certain, I cheated. If you make a certain grade on a test, you get to go to the higher public school program where it's
okay.
more
More
advanced
magnetic.
curriculum. Again,
Yeah.
Athena program. But then what they do is they stick that program into the lowest scoring school because we are technically that we become students of that school and we buoy their test scores, we buoy their graduation rates. But it's a very tense thing because we have our own classes, right, in the Athena program. And this was this is going to sound racist, but this is the facts of the matter. The Athena program was diverse. It did a great job of pulling from every racial background. The local school, the public school we were a part of, was not. It happened to be in a city that is mostly Hispanic. It was mostly Hispanic, which meant that there were plenty of Hispanic kids in the Athena program. But if you were white at that school, you most likely were part of the magnet program, which the kids knew. And this was
you have your own classes,
but shared the hallways in PE class.
Yeah.
So I was
and PE
a bullseye.
class. That's a key part of the story. Yeah,
I looked like a backup singer for Hanson. I had like a blonde bowl cut, so I was subject to that. And there was like gangs at our middle school.
Jesus.
So that was what I experienced in Corpus. And then my parents, my dad retired or was forced to retire because of medical things, and my mom wanted to live anywhere but Corpus. We moved to Atlanta, Georgia. She stuck me in a very wealthy public school for a year, and that was John Hughes High School. That was the football
movie,
players wore their t-shirts like
their
get out of here,
Letterman
pipsqueak.
jackets. Yeah, they're
mostly white.
They're carrying their football with them to class.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck is this? This is real? And just such a hierarchy of popularity because it was such a big. Also, my school was small. There was no room for cliques, really.
Yeah.
I hung out with like the weird theater kids and then the math kids.
Seems like you guys were accidentally a clique by yourself, though. In this.
Yeah. There were kids. It was really cool to see the magnet kids who could hang out with the local kids.
Right.
That took a lot of social skills to pull off. But then I spent a year there, and it was such a culture shock for me to see that was real. And then my parents sent me to a private school that put the public school to shame in terms of wealth. And pretentiousness. And one thing I noticed was the public school kids.
So you were all over the.
Yeah, I got to see the full gamut of
how
wealth. I guess I didn't see the poorest, but I got to see pretty poor to very, very rich.
About how different. Well, then now you have all this perspective. If you just take yourself out of those experiences of now you know how half the country is educated.
Yeah. And also seeing Corpus versus Atlanta. And I went to college in Houston, which I got to live in the city, which made me realize I'd never lived in a city because my college was like in. And then I lived there, and then I moved to L.A. And so at that point, I was only a Southerner, and I'm Jewish, and I come from a family that really values education. And I was kind of fed a lot of propaganda about how the South is an uneducated, intolerant, and backwards place.
But while you were there?
Yeah. My mom hated it there, so she constantly was just shitting on it. And then when I moved, I figured LA would be a progressive place, more Jews.
More transplants.
And I found it to be monolithic culturally, at least LA. And I found it to be less educated than Houston. And maybe more defensive of the South because Houston had NASA. Houston has the world's biggest medical district. Houston has like all of the petrochemical engineers. All the oils are based there. So I realized I'd been performing to really educated crowds. When I got to LA, I was like, these are just people with film degrees.
Wow. And they're all kind of, there's a base level of, I mean, I've never been to LA, but from what I've gathered is of pretentiousness or just like cutthroat, maybe self-centeredness out there where it's like,
it's pretty accurate.
It's like in Texas, it seems to be more
there's
giving or laid back even, or just that's interesting that you were talking about the crowds though that you get to perform to.
I love
how that affects it.
I didn't realize till much later how much that.
And you think it's because of their education level?
Yes.
And is that because you have a high level act maybe of like your jokes or your references, or do you think that no matter what your act was, if you had the silliest, most nonsensical act versus the most prolific, like thought out, I'm making good points, do you think that the education level plays into to that, like from the audience, or
yeah, education will always, or education's bad because not everyone has access to education. I think curiosity is a better word, which I consider a very high virtue. That people who seek to know new things rather than just be placated by things they already agree with and already know.
Especially if you're doing observational jokes, if you're not curious, then they're not going to make any sense, or it's going to be harder for it to make sense. There's jokes that kill that everyone laughs, but then there's people that don't get it and they're sitting there for 3-4 more seconds until they're like, oh, that's what he meant, because it's something just so strange. So what's such a weird observation? So I would say those 3-4 seconds is probably your curiosity just lagging behind almost.
That is a good feeling when you tell a joke and it takes a second to click and then you get people laughing at different points. That is my favorite feeling.
It's the best because
in the world.
The first people that get it, those are like your boys.
Yeah,
and you're like, all right, now I know it wasn't dumb, at least, what I said. So now I have the confidence to be like almost smug to the people falling behind, because in their head, they might be like, that joke was, I'm assuming that they're thinking that joke was dumb. But then I'm like, you're not going to think that if you know, just wait a little bit and I'm going to change your own mind.
Yeah.
That's a good feeling.
I
and
like
even
the feeling
in a social
where the people who laugh first, like, okay, those people were with me and seeing where the joke was going and found, I gave them enough information and they put it together very quickly. And then there's the second wave of people who laugh who took longer to put it together. And now the first wave of laughers are realizing that other people got it slower and now they're laughing at them. And now those people are laughing at themselves. So it just creates this kind of this organism that's out of your control now.
Yeah.
That feels great.
That is nice. And then you can stoke the flame by throwing in like, oh, some people just got it and now your first guys are like with you more.
Kind of a cheap move, but like, oh, you finally.
Well, I think that we're probably, Nathan, where are we closing on an hour here or so? 50 minutes.
Fucking 10 more minutes. Jesus Christ.
We can, I think just because... Yeah, and just because of the wrap up, I feel like now I just got to go through with the closing. But thank you for letting me come steal you away from your grocery shopping for a little bit.
Thank you for showing me real Tampa.
The
Holiday Inn Express.
Yeah, Side Splitters tonight.
Splitters tonight.
I'm not sure. I don't know how long we'll hold on to this one, but just plug anything that you want. Your socials or
May 18th through 21st. I will be making my debut at the San Francisco Punchline. That's the one I'll plug for now, and then I'm at Monday Punday on all my platforms.
At Monday Punday.
My YouTube's on stand-ups. My stand-up's on YouTube.
YouTube
so now if you're like, this guy's really
stand-up.
pretentious, let's see if his stand-up's any good. Now you're like, he's garbage.
Yeah. I don't think
lame-ass jokes.
All right. Well, Matthew, thank you again.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for supporting comedians.
Out Monday Punday for sure. All right. I don't really know how to end it, so I'll probably just cut
Keep
it
it
off
crispy.
here. Thank you, Matt. That was fun. That was fun.